In this session, I'm just going to describe some of the functions and facilities that the program has to offer that don't directly reflect in the financial calculations that the program makes. The first thing you'll notice when the program starts is that it will look like a traditional Excel screen. Now, because we don't need any experience in Excel, we can remove these. We don't need to see them. For example, by going to the View item in the menu, we can turn off the formula bar and turn off the headings. Also remove the ribbon menu by doing a right mouse button and saying minimize the ribbon. This will give us the maximum amount of visual space on the screen for our program. At the top of the sheet, you'll not only notice that there's a heading, but the heading also contains the address of the property that we currently have under review. This information is taken from the street address and the suburb that you have entered in the section below. Also, there's an indication of just exactly what is being intended by this particular project. These headings have a dual purpose. They not only display the nature of the project, but they also display any errors that may exist in the data that you've entered. For example, when I enter a value to force an error, it displays quite clearly across the top that there is an error in the data, and it also gives me a plain English description about exactly what is incorrect. Subsequently correct the error, all of the messages and warnings will disappear. You'll also notice at the top of the screen a number of buttons. These buttons link us to some websites which will help us to do research on the property that we currently have under review. Down the side here we have a number of links which link us to other sections of the data entry worksheet. For example, if I click on the project timeline plan, it takes me to the project timeline plan section of this particular sheet. And when I click on back to top, it takes me back to the top. I'd now like to draw your attention to the bottom of the screen. And like any Excel workbook, you'll notice that the workbook is divided up into a number of worksheets. And each of these particular sheets that you see across the bottom here are for a particular purpose, and we'll discuss these in later sessions. At the moment though, I'd just like to point out that not all of these sheets will be visible all of the time. Many of them are showing purely and simply because of the nature of the data that we've entered in the data entry sheet. Sheets such as the borrowing sheet, the cash flow and equity growth sheets will not be shown when the input data doesn't require them to be available. All of the data that's required for the feasibility study needs to be entered on the data entry sheet. None of the other sheets have any provision for data entry and are purely for reporting purposes. Next thing I'd like to mention is the amount of helpful information which is available with the program. You'll notice that when you point to some cells, some comments will appear. Comments not only explain the use of the data that's provided in this particular cell, but in many cases, particularly with some expense items, it gives you an indication of the types of values that might be indicative of the kind of cost item that you'd be investigating. For the most part, these comments just explain how the data in this particular cell is used, but in some cases there's also a guide about the costs for a particular cost item. Cell comments. There's also a fairly substantial help system built into the program. You'll notice across the top where we have the normal Excel menu an additional item called Register Help. When we select this item and then select Help from the drop-down menu, the help system will open to us. From here we can navigate to the subject matter that we want by looking at the contents or the index or even entering a search. We can clear this screen just by pressing the X. The way we can access the help system is to select the cell anywhere on this particular spreadsheet or any other spreadsheet for that matter and press the function 1 key, F1 at the top of the keyboard. The system will open up at a page which is consistent with the cells that we've selected. At this point we can exit from the help system just by pressing the X. In addition to the help system, there are a number of other special functions in the program. And these are activated by the series of buttons that you see down the right hand side of the screen. The first, Add New Worksheet. Many new worksheets as you like, and you can store whatever data you want in addition to the normal program data by adding new worksheets. The next function is the Update Stamp Duty Rates. By clicking on this button, we open up a series of rates that we can change at any time for any state, consistent with the types of changes that are made by the state revenue officers in each state. We can also update land tax rates in exactly the same way, again for each state. special function is the display watch window function, and when I click on this button, a window will open up which shows us the financial results without having to go to another sheet in order to see them or to produce any reports. This watch window we can move anywhere so that it's inconspicuous or in an area of the screen that we're not currently using, and it will remain on top as we scroll up and down the screen. Changes are made to the data, the results are immediately calculated and shown in the watch window. For example, when I change the purchase price, as you can see, the watch window immediately displays any impact that has on the anticipated profit and loss or any cash flow. The window can be removed at any time by pressing the X, and at any time when you're in a particular area of the screen where the Activate Watch Window button is not on display, the watch window can be displayed by pressing the combination of keys Control, Shift and F1. And when those combination of keys are pressed, the watch window will reappear in the top left hand corner. Again, the watch window can be removed just by clicking on the X, and we can return to the top of the sheet by pressing back to the top. The special functions is the GST Assistant, and when this is selected, a series of questions will be asked to help you determine which GST scheme is applicable for the project. The questions in the GST Assistant has a simple yes/no answer, but in all cases it has a not sure or explain button to help you make the right decision. When you've completed answering all of the questions, the program will tell you what GST scheme you should select in the input data. GST will be covered in a lot more detail in a later lesson. Completes this section of the tutorial. I hope you'll continue with the rest. Thank you.